Welcome to this explainer. We are diving into something absolutely wild that's unfolding right beneath the surface of the mainstream headlines. Believe it or not, the next economic shock? Well, it's already started. Today, we're going to explore the massive economic chain reaction triggered by recent geopolitical events, specifically the Iran conflict. Now, even if the situation appears to be calming down on the surface, the real financial consequences haven't fully hit the average person yet. It is absolutely vital to understand this entire mechanism before it really hits your wallet. So, have you noticed how every headline right now just seems to contradict the last one? It's super confusing, almost like we're not really meant to connect the dots. But when you look at the raw data, an economic chain reaction has absolutely been triggered. The shockwave is already on its way, and today we are going to look closely at the evidence together to see what it all actually means. Here's our roadmap. We'll be tracking this shockwave step by step, starting with the oil supply shock, then moving into the cost of living squeeze, the shrinking job market, our broken safety net, the threat of stagflation, and finally, the wealth gap reality.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the oil supply shock, global disruption.
Let's look at exactly how fast this escalated. Now keep in mind, we are focusing strictly on the financial and supply chain impacts here, rather than the politics or the military tactics. Because what really matters for your day-to-day life is the market disruption. So on February 28th, the US and Israel launched Operation Epic Fury, firing nearly 900 strikes in just 12 hours. Iran immediately retaliated. But the move that truly shook the global economy happened just days later in early March, when Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. Even though a ceasefire was later announced and the market breathed a massive sigh of relief, the shockwave had already been sent into the global system. The sea mine threat alone keeps vessels away. The damage was well and truly done. Now, to really grasp why this matters so much, we have to understand what the Strait of Hormuz actually is. It's this critical global shipping lane where 20% of the world's oil has to travel through every single day. And the most terrifying part for global supply chains, there is literally no alternative route. None. Think of it kind of like this. Imagine a single stretch of a vital motorway that carries 1/5 of the entire world's oil. Now, imagine someone just parked a massive lorry completely sideways right across all the lanes. Good luck getting to work, right? In this scenario, the conflict is that sideways lorry. It creates a completely unavoidable bottleneck that just chokes off the global supply chain instantly. And the result of that lorry being parked sideways? Oil shot from around $61 a barrel at the start of the year to over $118 by the end of March. That is nearly double in just 3 months. It's actually the biggest rise we have seen in nearly 40 years. This massive number, that is the very first domino falling.
Moving right along to Section 2, the cost of living squeeze, the ripple effect.
So, because a barrel of oil doubling doesn't just stay on the trading floor, it inevitably hits your grocery receipts through what we call the food poisoning effect. Look, the biggest lie out there right now is that because the fighting is calming down, things are magically getting cheaper. But think about it, when you get food poisoning, stopping eating the bad prawn doesn't mean you instantly feel better. The poison is already in your system. Oil is the invisible ingredient in almost everything you buy. Every single item in the supermarket was grown, processed, packaged, and driven using oil. All of those steps got more expensive, and that financial poison is still working its way through the entire system directly to you. Which brings us to Section 3, the shrinking job market, your income at risk.
When the cost of living spikes this aggressively, job security naturally weakens. It's what we call the squeezed sandwich. Businesses are getting hit hard from 2 directions at once. On one side, their costs for transport, manufacturing, and electricity are absolutely skyrocketing. On the other side, consumer spending is falling because everyday people are buying less just to pay their higher utility bills. When a business is squeezed from both sides like a sandwich, they have to make really fast decisions. It starts with cutting overtime and freezing hiring, which, by the way, we are already seeing, but it inevitably leads to layoffs.
Let's look at Section 4. The broken safety net, no government bailouts.
Now, you might be wondering, well, won't the government just step in and fix this like they did in 2008 or during the pandemic? The answer is this staggering number, $39 trillion. That is the current U.S. national debt. In a normal crisis, central banks cut interest rates to make borrowing cheaper, which gets the economy moving again. But you can't cut rates when inflation is already soaring. That just pushes prices even higher. So why not print money like in the pandemic? Well, because the US is sitting on $39 trillion in debt. The usual tools of cutting rates or printing money, they're effectively broken. To put that into perspective, look at how that debt translates to daily reality. 19 cents of every single tax dollar collected goes strictly to paying interest on that debt. Not hospitals, not roads, not schools, just interest. It currently costs about $88 billion a month. It's exactly like someone who has maxed out every credit card they own and is just struggling to make the minimum monthly payments. You wouldn't tell that person to just go out and borrow more money to fix their problems, would you? This leads us right into Section 5, the threat of stagflation, the worst-case scenario. When you combine rising prices with a government that has totally broken tools, you get stagflation. That is an economic condition where prices are high and rising, but the economy is weak, shrinking, and actively shedding jobs all at the exact same time. Honestly, it's one of the nastiest financial traps a country can possibly fall into. Imagine finding out your job is at risk on the exact same day your energy bill goes up by 30%. That right there is stagflation. If we contrast a normal recession with its evil twin, you'll see why this is so terrifying. In a normal recession, the economy shrinks and people lose jobs. But because people stop spending, prices actually fall, and the government can cut rates to help. Stagflation, it's the evil twin. The economy shrinks, but prices keep rising. And here is the ultimate catch-22. The tools used to fix inflation, like raising rates, make the recession worse. And the tools used to fix a recession, like cutting rates, make inflation worse. It is literally like being stuck in quicksand. The more you struggle, the deeper you sink. And with U.S. inflation recently jumping to 3.3% and growth forecasts dropping, we are in textbook stagflation territory. And, the data really backs up the danger. Moody's actually has an AI model that was tested against 80 years of economic data just to predict recessions. Every single time it crosses 50%, a recession has followed within 12 months, without fail. Right now, it sits at 49%. It is just one single percentage point away from a threshold that has never been wrong in 8 decades. And get this, that 49% was calculated before the global oil shock even happened. Because of this, it turns out the smartest money managers in the world are already reacting. Since the US dollar is in such a tough spot, foreign central banks are rapidly shifting their assets. In 2015, global central bank reserves were 33% U.S. treasuries and just 9% gold. Today, that has completely flipped. Gold now makes up 24% of reserves, and treasuries have dropped to 21%. They are actively shifting away from the dollar to real, tangible assets to protect themselves from this exact scenario. Finally, Section 6, the wealth gap reality, an unequal shock. Look, we have to acknowledge that this economic shock does not land the same way for everyone. The numbers are incredibly stark. Research shows that low-income households spend roughly 33% of their total income just on food, compared to about 13% for middle-income households. So when oil doubles and food prices jump, for a wealthy person, it's just a minor annoyance at the checkout line. But for a lower earner, it is completely life-changing. It's the difference between noticing the price of petrol and genuinely wondering if you can even afford to drive to work. And when the government tries to help, we get what is called the leaky bucket of subsidies. Let's say governments step in with price caps to protect citizens. What actually happens in reality? Well, during the Ukraine crisis, 95 of the world's biggest food and energy corporations made $36 billion in completely unexpected profits in a single year, with 84% of that going straight to shareholders. The government uses your tax money to cap your energy bill, but the energy companies just charge the government the full price and pocket the difference. Funny how that works, isn't it? The relief meant for you leaks straight out of the bucket and into massive corporate profits. So what can you actually do about all this? Honestly, you have to take personal responsibility. Based on the data we've covered, here are 4 defensive strategies. First, pause major financial commitments. Don't just assume things will get cheaper soon. You need to save a buffer. Second, upskill at your job so you become utterly irreplaceable if layoffs do happen. Third, start a side hustle. You can literally learn an online skill in about 20 focused hours and create a brand new income stream. And finally, diversify your assets. Don't leave everything in cash where inflation can just eat it away. Look to assets that hold their value. I want to leave you with this incredibly sobering thought taken directly from the data. During the recovery of the 2008 financial meltdown, the top 1% of U.S. earners captured 95% of all income gains. The middle class is being squeezed from every side, and the harsh reality is nobody is coming to save you. So are you going to just wait for the storm to hit, or are you going to take charge of your financial reality today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Stay informed out there, and I'll see you next time.